This is Vahid from VRF Education channel, and it is the 6th session of MongoDB tutorial. Today, we are here to learn how to fetch data from collections in MongoDB databases. MongoDB provides two different ways for querying data, findOne and find. As the name implies, findOne is used when we want to get first occurrence of a document that somehow matched with the criteria that we passed to this method, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. But find gonna return a cursor to the first element of a result list of documents that they match the criteria again we sent for this method. The criteria that we are able to send for methods are the same, and there are a lot of options to work with when we want to query data. Unlike other operations such as insert, update, and delete, we can do a lot of things with querying data. We have a lot of options how to query data, how to fetch data, and also the projection, what kind of fields we need to be present at the output. They are very different ways to handle this situation, and we're going to learn how to do this in this session and also next sessions. We have already seen the functionality of find method without passing any parameter. It's gonna retrieve all the elements inside a collection. Not all the elements. It has a little bit trick, and I'm gonna tell it in the next session. But we already used it to fetch data from a collection. But today we're going to focus on findOne. This is the signature for findOne. We need to pass a query and a projection. Both of these parameters are optional. And again, DB refer to currently activated database in MongoDB, and the collection is the name of the collection that we are going to fetch data from. So for query, as it says here, it's an option and it specifies the criteria using query operators. There's a lot of operators inside MongoDB, and we can make use of them to create complex query over collections. And for projection, again, it's optional, and using this option or this parameter, we can specify the fields that we want to include in a resulted document. For example, we can narrow the document and omit some unnecessary field. And for this purpose, we should pass a JSON object with the name of the field and a value of 1 or true for the field to be inserted at the output. And also, if no element inside the collection match the criteria that we passed as a query parameter, this method called gonna return null. And also, if we call it without any parameter, just like find that we used in previous session, it's gonna return the first element of the collection. So let's see what query operators are about. As you can see here, we provide a simple query parameter, a field and a value. When we provide this kind of query, the MongoDB looks for some documents that has exact the same field name and the values. Okay, but sometimes we don't need to check for equality. For example, we want to compare two numbers, greater than, less than, or not equal even. For this purpose, we can use query selectors. Query selectors are something like this: dollar, start with dollar, and couple of letters. EQ stand for equals, greater, greater than, equal, in. This one is used when we want to check something inside a list. Less than, equal, not equal, and not in. By using these selectors, we can create a complex query, and also we can query nested object inside our main documents. So let's go to mongoosh and see how we can create a query over a collection and getting result back from that collection. Okay, let's connect to MongoDB server installed on my local computer, and if I just use show DBs, you can see I created a database named human resource DB. Let's change to this database and also run the show collections command. Here we have two collections, employees and departments. So I'm gonna just drop the db.employees. I'm gonna drop employees using drop command or drop method, and then I'm gonna insert a couple of documents to employees. So I just make a copy of this one, and let's press enter. Okay, it says there are 6 items inserted inside the employees. Now let's make a query over the employees dot find. So here, as you can see, we have 6 different items. Each item contains first name, last name, email, and salary fields. Now let's go and create some query. As I said before, if I just use db.employees, the collection name, and call findOne method without any parameter, it's going to return the first item inside the collection. So this is the first item. So by using findOne without any parameters, we can get the first item inside the collection. For the next one, I'm going to say I'm looking for all the documents that their first name equal to, for example, Kapil. And that's it. We just provide a JSON object with the fields that we are looking for. Now if I press enter, it says, okay, you have only one item. Not one item. This is the first item that matching the criteria. The fifth document is this one, and it has the first name equal to Kapil. Let's see. No, we don't have any other first name equal to Kapil. So that's it. You can just provide a JSON object that contains the field that you are looking for. What if I just looking for something like this, Kapil with 3 extra L's? So if I press enter, because there's no document inside this collection that has a first name equal to this one, it returns null. Okay. Now I'm going to use those query selectors. Imagine that I'm looking for documents that their salary is greater than 8,000. So let's say we have this one and this one. Greater than equal will also contain this document. So I'm going to say db.employees.findOne, and for this for using query selectors, you need to first specify the field name, and after that you need to provide those query selectors inside another JSON object. So we have $GT greater than, and then pass the value 8,000, and that's it. So we just mentioned the name of the field, and for query selectors we need to specify them inside another object. If I press enter, it says okay, the first item that its salary is greater than 8,000 is this one, Steve, with the salary of 9,000. This is the first one. We are just using findOne, so this item will be returned to the output. Now imagine another scenario. I'm gonna look for a document that its salary is greater than 6,000 and less than, for example, 7,600. So it's not meet the criteria because it's just less than 6,000. This one just meets the first part of the criteria. It's greater than 6,000, but it's not less than 7,600. But this one meets the criteria, so I'm looking for this one. So in order to use both operators, both query selectors together, you can just separate them with comma. I'm looking for a salary that meet these two query selectors. It should be greater than 6,000, and it also should be less than, for example, 7,600. That's it. So if I press enter, it's going to return this record, James Bond. So here is the way that you can combine those query selectors together, and in future I'm going to tell you more complex query selectors combination together. Now let's go for the second parameter in find service method, projection. Using projection, we can customize the output fields. What does it mean? Imagine I just want to see first name and last name at the output, and I don't want to see the email and salary, and I'm looking for a person whose name is Sachin. This one. Okay. So what's the query should be? db.employees dot find one, find the first one. The query is first name equal to, for example, not for example exactly, Sachin. And it's also case sensitive, do not forget. We are working with a string, and a string are case sensitive all of the time. And let's provide projection parameter. I'm going to say, I just want to see first name. So we can just say the field name and pass one as its value in the projection JSON object. And last name. We can just pass first name 1 or true. So this time I'm gonna pass true. So if I press enter, it's gonna say okay, this is the first item that match the criteria. The first name and the last name is this 2-1, and by default underline ID or the primary key also included at the output. So in order to hide the underline ID, you should mention it directly with the 0 value. So I don't want to see the ID at the output. So if I press enter, you can see this time we only have these two fields, first name and last name, for the selected document. There's a general tips about projection. You cannot combine inclusion and exclusion of fields together except for underline ID. What does it mean? So here we have both inclusion of these two fields and exclusion of underline ID. As I just said, we can use ID exclusion with another field's inclusion. But if here I just want to say I'm going to include first name, but I don't need last name. If I set 0 for this field, and if I press enter, it says cannot do exclusion on field last name in inclusion projection. So we only can have inclusion or exclusion. We cannot combine them. What's useful for? Imagine that we have a lot of field. Let's omit this one. Here we have, for example, 4 fields without considering underline ID. I just want all the fields in the output except email. So for this purpose, you can just say I want to see all the fields except email and underline ID. So if I press enter, you can see first name, last name, and salary are included in the output by exclusion of email. So sometimes when we are dealing with a large document with a lot of fields that we just want to omit a couple of them, it's better to use exclusion, not inclusion. And again, one more time, you cannot use inclusion and exclusion together. So if this time I said, okay, I don't want to see email, but I need to see first name. Again, this time it says cannot do inclusion on field first name in exclusion, just the opposite of this one. So here it says first field is exclusion and the next is inclusion. They are somehow cannot be combined. So this is it, how we can use projection with different type of needs for exclusion and inclusion. That's okay for this session, and in the next session we're going to check find method in details and see how we can query over nested objects and also arrays inside a list.